All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, if you haven't checked into On Campus and actually typed out an answer, go ahead and do that. Um, Also, if you haven't checked number 18 on your homework, go ahead and do that. And then in the next like 30 seconds or so, we'll actually start number 19. While people are doing that, there's a couple of things we're going to do today. So one, I want to go over this homework, make sure you actually understand it, and Kramer's rule. After that, I want to kind of give you guys like I guess the first version of a practice test. Um, and then with that, I want to talk about kind of my expectations for the test, um, when that'll be, and kind of what's going to happen with that, as well as retakes. So I think I finally have a plan for retakes, and I'll talk about that a little bit too. All right, so go ahead and take the next 30 seconds, check over number 18, and if you have any questions over 18, put them in the comments, and we'll go over them. Okay, so for number 18, this is all of the work that I would expect for a Kramer's rule type question. Um, you would have to show all of this work. So you need to find the coefficient matrix that is up here. You'd have to find the determinant of that matrix by hand. And then you'd have to plug in the correct formula for each variable. Okay, so that's all of the work I'm expecting. I get that you can do the first coefficient matrix on your calculator. That's fine. I want you to show it by hand. So this is all by hand. And then these matrices down here, those you can do on a calculator. Okay, and I would expect you to be able to do those on a calculator as well. On the test, do we have to use Kramer's rule? Yes, there will be one Kramer's rule type question. Okay, can you write down the steps for part where you use your calculator so I can put it in my notes? Yeah, that's each of these in green. So these determinants, so these numerators of R, S, and T, all of those you can do in your calculator. And to do that, you go to second matrix, you edit your 3x3 matrix, go to second matrix again, scroll over to math, and then the first option is DET. Hit that, and then recall the matrix that you edited. And then hit enter, and you get a number. Okay, so for R's example, the determinant of this entire matrix is equal to negative 56, and then negative 56 divided by 56, that's negative 1. For S, our numerator is just 56. For T, our numerator is negative 112. Okay, so that again, that is all of the work I would expect, and it's not too terribly hard. You just got to remember kind of the steps in order to do them. All right, so now I'll do kind of 19, so you can see it step by step. And the first thing you do for number 19 is just to get the coefficient matrix, which is just the matrix of all of the coefficients, which is everything right here. All right. After that, we need to find the determinant of that matrix. All right, and in order to do that, I'll try and color code this. We have to multiply these diagonals together. So we get negative 4 times negative 5 times negative 1 plus negative 4 times 1 times 2 plus 3 times negative 4 times negative 2. Then we take the diagonal the other way. And multiply those things together. And we have to subtract that pink from the blue. All right, and we'll end up getting, if we plug that into a calculator, for that top part, we get negative 4. And then for that bottom part, we get negative 54. And keep in mind, and I saw a lot of errors from this in the homework, we're subtracting these things. So negative 4 really plus 54, which is equal to 50. Okay, so that's our denominator in this case for x, y, and z. All right, then we need to set up actual Cramer's rule. So x will equal the determinant of some matrix over 50. Y will also be some matrix over 50. And z will be some matrix over 50. And in these matrices, so for x, it's just the coefficient matrix, except we're replacing our x column with our answers. And we do that for y and z as well. So for y, we're replacing our y column with our answers. And for z, we're replacing our z column with our answers. And everything else in that matrix is the same as the coefficient matrix. Get determinant of 34. Hold on a second then. I still got negative. I still got 50. Hold on a second though. Okay, where did I get wrong then? Oh, okay, I got you. So that this should be -4 right there. So this should be -38. All right, so then all of our denominators change. Sorry about that. Okay, but after we have that determinant and we set up x, y, and z using Kramer's rule, now is when you would use your calculator. All right, so instead of taking the determinants of all of these numerators by hand, you need to get out a calculator and you need to take them by a calculator. All right, so for x, you would do second matrix, go over to edit one of your matrices, make sure it's a 3 by 3, plug in -9, -4, 3, -15, -5, 1, -11, -2, and -1. Second quit, second matrix, scroll over to math, hit that first option, and then recall the matrix that you edited. So we get -34 over 34, which is just -1. So x, in this case, is -1. Okay, and you do the same thing for y and z. So you should get y is equal to 4 and z is equal to 1. Okay, so questions about 18 or 19 using Kramer's rule. All right, so again, on a question that asks to solve a system of 3 equations using Kramer's rule, this is all the work I would expect from it. Okay, and on your test, you're going to have one question that requires you to use this. Okay, so the more familiar you are, the better. All right, so if you didn't get this right on your homework, that's okay. This is exactly how I would want it done. And we did a couple of examples in this in the last lecture, which you can also go back and watch. And you'll also be able to go back and watch this. Okay, so if there are no other questions for 18 or 19, I will show you the practice test, but I'll give you 30 seconds or so just to correct anything you need or ask any questions you have. can we use our calculator on X, Y, and Z, or did you just do that to save time? No. So you can use your calculator for X, Y, and Z. The only part I really expect you to do by hand is kind of this entire top part. Okay, so all of this that I just boxed, that should all be done by hand. Everything right here, that can be done by a calculator. Okay, so you have to find one determinant by hand. And then same for 18. Everything right here, that's all done by hand. And everything right here, that's done by calculator. Okay, so practice test. All right, one, your test will be Friday, and the way this is gonna work. So you guys are first on Friday. No, you'd be last on Friday. Well, whatever. I will post this test to on campus and in your emails about 10 to 15 minutes before your class actually starts. And then you will have until the end of the period and maybe like 10 or 15 minutes more to submit it to on campus, kind of like you submitted your homework. So if you didn't submit your homework, you'll be doing this for the first time, which probably isn't good. Okay. Different types of questions. Okay. You will have to carry out different so you'll have to like add matrices, you have to multiply matrices by scale factors, and then you will have to multiply matrices together. All right, so numbers 1, 2, and 3 will look a lot like they do on this practice test. All right, besides that, you have to solve a system of equations using just elimination. All right, so that's the really kind of longer way by hand. And you'll have to show all the work. You will have to solve one system of 3 equations using Cramer's rule. And then you'll have to solve a system of 2 equations in any way that you know how. Okay, and that'll be the test, which is probably shorter than what I wanted it to be if we'd been in class. But for now, I think that's good. That covers everything we've covered. And you'll have to show all of your work. So I'll grade it kind of like a normal test. All right. This practice test can be found in topics. All right, so if you go to that matrices and systems of equations topic, this is the practice test in it. Okay, so the answers are all there. But again, if you really want to be prepared for this, make sure you're able to do it without the answers, without notes, and without help. How will we do our tests if we do our work on paper? You just take a picture of it, submit that picture. So it'll be just like submitting the homework that we did earlier. Take a picture of it. And a word on that, don't put your pictures in a document. That makes it really, really hard to read. So just submit the actual picture. And I'll have a couple of different places where you can do that. I know the first time we did this, you can only submit like one picture, which is probably why people use put it, copy and paste it into a document. That's fine. But for this one, I'll have like 4 or 5 like download or uploads available for you so you can submit different pictures. Okay, but do not submit it as a document. Okay. So with this practice test, I'll kind of let you guys look through it for a couple of minutes. And then the next like 2 or 3 minutes, if you guys have like specific questions, like I absolutely don't know how to do this, we'll go over it. On Wednesday, I'll like regenerate this and we'll do the same thing. And then on Friday, you'll actually take it. Okay. So I'll give you the next like minute or so to actually like look at it. Do you want us to turn this practice test in as well? No, no. You don't need to turn this in. This is just for you. All right. So take the next like 2 minutes, look over the actual practice test. One, find it. Two, look over it. And then as you guys have questions, just kind of leave them in the comments. All right. So I'll give you a minute to do that. And we'll reconvene here in a second. All right. Number one. All right. So I was gonna put a list of different types of questions. The first thing we need to be able to do is actually use operations with matrices. Okay. And no, you cannot just plug this into a calculator and give me an answer. All right. So I actually want to see step by step what you're doing. So the first thing you need to do is to simplify the inside of parentheses. All right. So matrices still follow order of operations. You have to do the inside of the parentheses first. All right. So you have two matrices and you're subtracting them together. All right. So when we subtract matrices, their dimensions have to be the same. All right. So this top one or this left-hand one, that is a 2-row by 3-column matrix. This right one is also a 2 by 3-row matrix. Okay. So we can actually add and subtract these. All right. And when we're adding or subtracting, we're just adding or subtracting corresponding elements. All right. So -6 minus a -5. So -6 really plus 5, that'll just be -1. 1 minus 5, it's -4. -2 minus 1, that's -3. Okay, -1 minus a -6 is -1 plus 6, which is 5. 0 minus 6, -6. 3 minus 5, it's -2. Okay, so that's subtracting corresponding stuff. So I would expect to see this step first. All right, so every type of operation, that's one step that I need to see. All right, then we need to multiply this matrix by the scalar 4. And in order to multiply matrices by scalars, you really just distribute this 4 to everything inside the matrix. All right, so our new matrix then is -4, -16, -12, 20, -24, and -8. And then similar, number 2, I would like to see this step first, and then you can add the next one. All right, so if we just take these first two as its own problem, -3 plus 5, that's 2. -2 plus 5, that's 3. -1 plus 3, that's 2. And then we'd have to add this matrix to the second half of the problem. And then it'd be 2 plus -1, that's just 1. 3 plus 2, that's 5. 2 plus -1, that's just positive 1. And I'm just going to do number 3 because multiplying matrices can be tricky and I want to make sure you actually know it. All right, so again, the first thing we do is follow order of operations, which says that we need to do this stuff in parentheses first. So if we simplify that, we get 0, -18, and -12. And then we have to multiply those two matrices together. Okay, now, in order to multiply two matrices together, the first thing you need is to get their dimensions. All right, so this first matrix, this left-hand matrix, that is a 2-row by 1-column matrix. This right-hand matrix is a 1-row and 3-column matrix. In order to multiply these two things together, these two numbers have to be the same, which they are, which means we can multiply them. And our new matrix will be a 2 by 3 matrix. So 2 rows and 3 columns. So in order to get each of these elements, their coordinates kind of tell you what to do. All right, so this top left-hand one, that's the first row, first column, first row, second column, first row, third, second row, first, second row, second, and second row, third. Okay, and each of these tells you what to multiply what by. So this element tells you to multiply the first row times the first column. All right, which in this case is really easy. You just do 1 times 0, which gets you 0. The second element, that's first row times second column. So we do first row times second column, which is just 1 times -18. First row, third column, multiply first row by third column. So 1 times -12. Second row, first column, so you multiply the second row by the first column. Second row, second column. And second row, third column. So our answer then would be this. Okay, so questions about those first three. The trickiest of those has to be, it will be multiplying matrices together. So if you understand how to do that, you should be good. Okay, questions on the rest of this practice test. All right, so since there are no other questions, your kind of homework then is to do 4, 5, and 6. You don't need to turn it in anywhere, but 4, 5, and 6, I would expect you to be able to do for sure. All right. Uh, and then what I would like is for you to come in with questions on Wednesday. I'll give you another one of these and we can kind of go over it together. And then Friday, you will take that test. Okay. Before anything, so I guess on a kind of on a tangent, retakes. So if someone wanted to take a retake, um, since it's a little bit different, we're in a little bit different of a setting. Um, what I'm going to do is I'll regenerate the actual test that you want to retake. And you will have to do that test, but you will have to do it and kind of explain each step. All right, so you'd actually be submitting a video of you physically doing the test and explaining each one. Okay, that way I know you're not just kind of looking it up on the internet and get an answer and copying it down. I want you to actually understand what's happening. All right, and I'll be grading that as your retake. Okay, so if you do want to retake, I kind of have a good feeling of, I have a good idea of who that is. All right, so just be patient. I'll regenerate a test and we'll figure out a time to actually do that. Okay, so before I close this and head over to Teams, are there any questions over anything I've said over the last like 30 minutes? I guess I can put it this way. Can you email us the retake test? Yeah, I will email you the retake test. Does anyone want to see any more of these kind of done in front of them? All right. Um, so the goal here is to be able to do this practice test without help. All right. So if you need a little bit of help on this one, that's okay. By Wednesday afternoon, you should be able to do all this stuff without any help or without notes or without me. Okay. That's still the goal. That's still the expectation, right? So I'm gonna head over to Teams in the next like 2 or 3 minutes. If you have specific questions, I can help you there. All right. So I'm gonna end this. And again, if you have questions, email me or go to Teams right now, and I'll be there. All right. So I'll see you then.